Thanksgiving at Il Giardino was never meant to be a battleground. But in the bold and the beautiful, nothing stays simple, and gratitude quickly turned into confrontation when a volatile mix of unresolved emotions, forbidden attraction, and explosive jealousy erupted into a scene no one could have predicted. What began as a series of innocent therapy sessions between Deacon Sharp and Dr. Taylor Hayes evolved into something far more complicated. Now, with Sheila Carter lurking in the shadows and Ridge Forrester's ghost haunting every choice Taylor makes, a single kiss becomes the catalyst for a public unraveling that may destroy careers, relationships, and the already fragile peace between some of Los Angeles' most dangerous hearts. It started quietly enough. After weeks of emotional therapy sessions where Taylor was supposed to be the healer, the dynamic began to shift. Deacon had come to her for help initially to cope with the pain of losing his relationship with Sheila, to unpack his years of self-destruction, and to gain some perspective as he tried to build something stable, especially for his daughter Hope. Taylor, ever the professional, listened. She guided, but somewhere along the way, the lines blurred. Deacon didn't just feel better, he started to feel needed. And Taylor, once the voice of rationality, found herself being comforted by the very man she was meant to help heal. Session after session, their connection deepened, and Deacon began offering her the kind of emotional support she hadn't received from Ridge in years. Taylor had tried to bury her past with Ridge. She had tried to accept that his eternal back and forth with Brooke Logan was never going to end. That realization should have been closure. Instead, it left a void, and Deacon filled it with understanding, humor, and something that looked dangerously like love. He saw her, not as Ridge's ex, not as a world-renowned psychiatrist, but as a woman who was tired, hurt, and finally willing to be vulnerable. And in one unguarded moment, somewhere between confession and clarity, it happened. A kiss. Spontaneous, tender, loaded with everything unspoken. A kiss that said, this isn't therapy anymore, but they weren't alone. From across the room, hidden in a sliver of shadows behind the wine racks at Il Giardino, Sheila Carter witnessed everything. Her expression didn't flicker, not at first, but her eyes burned. For Sheila, this wasn't just a betrayal. It was the betrayal. Deacon was hers, or so she believed. Despite their recent tension and Deacon's attempts to pull away, she had always counted on the fact that he would never stray too far. After all, they shared secrets, danger, and a history that couldn't be undone. But now, watching him kiss the woman who had once put a bullet in her, Sheila felt something snap. And when Sheila snaps, people bleed. Still, she didn't say anything that night. She waited. She watched, and she planned. Thanksgiving at Il Giardino was the perfect trap. The restaurant had agreed to host a charity dinner. Deacon's idea, ironically, a way to give back, to keep things civil, to prove that even complicated people can come together for a good cause. Taylor was invited as a guest. Sheila, as always, insisted on helping in the kitchen. After all, she still had a stake in the place, and Deacon hadn't formally pushed her out. Not yet. But as the guests settled in, as wine was poured and toasts were made, the room began to fill with tension. Deacon was on edge. Taylor was cautious. And Sheila? She was calm. Too calm. Dinner had barely begun when Sheila made her move. She stepped out from behind the counter, apron still on, eyes locked on Deacon and Taylor like a predator. With a smile to wide and a tone to sweet, she clinked her wine glass and called for a toast. Everyone went silent. Sheila raised her glass. "To unexpected connections," she said, "and to the people who always surprise us." Then she turned directly to Taylor. "I'd like to raise a glass to Dr. Hayes," Sheila said. "Not just for her service to this city, but for her ability to heal even men who used to sleep with psychopaths like me." The room froze. Deacon stood up, ready to de-escalate, but Taylor beat him to it. Calm, but visibly rattled, she replied with grace, thanking Sheila for her candor and trying to change the subject. But Sheila wasn't finished. She walked around the table slowly, one hand trailing along the white linen as she circled her prey. You know, Sheila continued, I used to think therapy was about honesty, boundaries. But I guess some therapists get a little confused when their patients start whispering sweet nothings between sobs. That was it. Taylor stood up. I think we should take this outside, she said firmly. But Sheila didn't move. Why, doctor? Ashamed of something? Afraid someone might find out you kissed a man who was still grieving his lunatic ex? Afraid it might ruin that shiny little license of yours? Now Deacon moved. He positioned himself between the two women, his voice low, controlled. That's enough, Sheila, but it wasn't. I trusted you, she hissed at him. You said you wanted out. You said you needed space. And now I see what you really needed, someone with credentials and a hero complex. The restaurant went silent again. Guests were visibly uncomfortable. Brooke, who had come to support Deacon for Hope's sake, looked horrified. Hope and Liam, seated at the far end, exchanged panicked glances. Even Ridge, who had only shown up to gloat, seemed stunned. Taylor took a deep breath and turned to the crowd. I made a mistake, she said. Yes, a line was crossed. I allowed myself to become emotionally involved with someone I was helping. And that's on me. I will report it to the board and take whatever consequences come. But I will not be dragged by someone who once tried to kill me. The room gasped. Sheila's smile faded. You want to talk about the past? Taylor, she snapped. You think everyone forgot what you did? The sanctimonious little shrink with the perfect life. Please, you just pretend better than the rest of us. That's when the plates started clattering. Security was called. Ridge stood, finally doing something other than glowering, and helped guide Sheila away, though not before she broke a wine glass in her hand and shouted, You don't get to erase me. Deacon, the Thanksgiving dinner ended not with dessert, but with flashing lights. Police arrived, not to arrest Sheila yet, but to investigate the disturbance. Sheila was warned. Taylor gave a formal statement. Deacon sat in silence, face buried in his hands, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. But this wasn't just a dinner gone bad. It was a turning point. The kiss between Taylor and Deacon had already crossed ethical boundaries. Now it had become public knowledge witnessed, weaponized, and broadcast in the most humiliating way. Taylor would be called before the medical board. Her license was at risk. Her career, once flawless, now hung in the balance. Deacon would have to reckon with the fallout not just for himself, but for Hope, whose new engagement to Liam was now under pressure as well. Sheila's vendetta didn't just affect her enemies. It poisoned everything around them. Hope, caught between loyalty to her father and the safety of her own family, began to question whether Deacon's involvement in her life was becoming too dangerous. Liam, protective as always, argued that Deacon's continued proximity to Sheila was a liability they couldn't afford, not now, not with Beth to think about. And Steffi, always watching, would certainly use this moment to push her own agenda against the Logans and reaffirm her disdain for Deacon's presence in their orbit. The Thanksgiving disaster would ripple through every major family in Los Angeles. Ridge would now have more ammunition to question Taylor's judgment. Brooke would be forced to confront her own role in encouraging Deacon's rehabilitation. And Sheila? She wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. What comes next is anyone's guess. But one thing is certain. A kiss born in vulnerability and witnessed by a woman fueled by rage has now become the epicenter of the bold and the beautiful's most explosive triangle in years. Love, reputation, and lives are on the line, and no one leaves Il Giardino the same. Liam Spencer believed timing was finally on his side. After months of soul-searching, a renewed sense of purpose, and witnessing the collapse and rebuilding of his relationship with Hope Logan, he decided it was time. Time to stop living in the past. Time to stop letting doubt win. Time to propose again, but this time for keeps. This time with clarity, with certainty, with nothing left unsaid. But in the world of the bold and the beautiful, love never unfolds in a straight line. And for Hope Logan, nothing about her life, not her emotions, not her career, not her relationships, has ever been simple. The moment Liam chose to drop to one knee was not the quiet dinner at home, not a walk on the beach, not a private evening under the stars. It was the center of a crowded fashion event, cameras flashing, designers whispering, executives watching, old flames lurking, and Hope's heart still very much in repair. Hope for the future had just been resurrected. The fashion line she had poured her soul into had come back from the brink of collapse, but not without cost. The creative direction was still raw, the internal team shaky, and her own emotional investment strained by months of professional disappointment and personal chaos. She was determined to rebuild it not just as a brand, but as a symbol of who she was becoming, a woman no longer defined by the men around her, no longer apologizing for ambition, and no longer afraid of disappointing those who expected her to be the quiet, good Logan girl. Hope had spent so long trying to balance the demands of her career with her chaotic love life that she barely knew where one ended and the other began. But the relaunch of HFTF offered a fresh start, and Hope was clinging to that more than she realized. And that's exactly when Liam decided to propose. The venue was Electric Forester Creations' fashion presentation, a high-stakes public comeback for Hope, one she had worked tirelessly to curate. Her designs had just debuted. The audience, a swirl of press, influencers, and key players from both her past and present, were watching. The lights dimmed as the final model walked the runway. Hope stepped forward, ready to deliver a thank you speech. But before she could speak, Liam emerged from backstage. In his hand was a small velvet box, and in his eyes, years of history, heartbreak, hope, and unfinished promises. Hope, he said into the microphone, his voice echoing across the sleek, modern room. We've come so far. We've been broken. We've healed. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you. I want to build a future with you and Beth. Will you marry me? The audience gasped. Applause began to ripple. Cameras clicked wildly. But all of that faded into a dull roar compared to the silence in Hope's mind. Her heart pounded, but not with clarity, with confusion. Her eyes widened, not in joy, but in hesitation. The ring sparkled under the event lights, but the moment felt off balance, like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to jump or run. And in that hesitation, the entire storyline fractured into two dangerous possibilities. On one side, she says yes, out of pressure, out of love, out of a desperate desire to find safety in something familiar, something loyal. But by doing so, she risks repeating every mistake she's ever made, putting others' needs ahead of her own, numbing her instincts, pretending the doubt she feels will go away if she just tries hard enough. This path leads to comfort, but also deception of herself, of Liam, of the future they both deserve. On the other side, she says no, or not yet. She asks for space, for time, for her terms. She chooses for the first time in a long time not to fall into the same pattern, but to rewrite it. She risks hurting Liam, potentially pushing him away again, but gains something she's never had before, control over her own narrative. She stops being a woman who reacts and becomes one who decides. But at that moment, Hope does neither. Not yet. She freezes. The crowd waits. Liam's smile starts to falter. Then, whispers begin. Ivy Forrester is seated in the front row. Daphne Rose, newly re-signed to the design team, whispers to Deke Sharp. In the back, Thomas Forrester arrives late, stopping cold as he sees the scene unfold before him, his worst fear playing out in real time. The woman he once loved, the one who wouldn't commit to him, now standing in front of a proposal from Liam. The pain in Thomas's eyes isn't missed, nor is the growing unease in Hope's expression. Steffi, arms crossed near the press pit, watches everything with a look that is equal parts judgment and amusement. She had warned Liam that Hope was too uncertain, too emotionally scattered to anchor anything stable. And now, in front of the fashion world, her prediction is starting to come true. But the drama doesn't stop there. Hope, realizing the eyes on her, finally steps forward and takes Liam's hands in hers. Her voice is low, trembling but firm. "This is a beautiful gesture," she says, gently. "And I love you, Liam. But I need a minute." A murmur ripples through the room. The cameras catch every word. Hope looks out over the sea of stunned faces. She sees her mother, Brooke, shifting uncomfortably, Ridge glancing sideways at Taylor, Deacon standing awkwardly near the bar, clearly stunned, and then her eyes find Thomas just long enough to register the devastation in his stare. The man she once wore a ring for, but never gave her heart to completely. Hope steps back from Liam. "Can we talk somewhere private?" she asks. Liam nods, silent. The two disappear backstage, leaving the fashion show in limbo. But out front, speculation explodes. Reporters swarm. Blogs fire off headlines. Hope Logan hesitates at public proposal. Is the Lope reunion already crumbling? Thomas Forrester's reaction says everything. Backstage, Liam and Hope sit alone. The buzz of the event muffled behind thick curtains. "You didn't say no," Liam says softly. "But I didn't say yes either," Hope replies. Liam swallows hard. Why not? And this is where Hope changes. "I need to be sure I'm not saying yes just because it's safe, just because it's what people expect. I need to know that I'm not running from my uncertainty or ignoring what I feel in my gut just to give everyone else a happy ending." Liam looks wounded. "I'm not everyone else. I know," Hope says. "But I am. To me. And right now, I don't know if I'm ready to give myself to us again without knowing who I am first." The pain in Liam's expression is clear, but so is the honesty in Hope's. For once, she isn't performing. She's not choosing out of guilt or fear. She's choosing with clarity. Outside, the fashion world digests the drama. Social media lights up with speculation. Fashion blogs turn into gossip mills. The reboot of HFTF is overshadowed by the romantic implosion unfolding in real time. At Forrester Creations, fallout begins. Steffi uses the hesitation as ammunition to question Hope's leadership stability. She wonders aloud whether Hope's emotional life is too unstable to spearhead such a crucial line. Ivy, watching the power dynamics shift, quietly considers stepping back into the spotlight. Daphne and Deke begin revisiting contingency plans in case Hope's public image takes a hit. And Thomas, he spirals. Seeing the woman he once almost married, still trapped in indecision, still leaning toward a man who has broken her heart more than once, ignites a firestorm within him. That night, Hope returns home alone. She looks at the engagement ring Liam gave her. It's beautiful. It's full of history. But for the first time, she doesn't immediately try it on. Instead, she places it on the counter. Then, she walks to her daughter Beth's room, sits beside her, and just listens to her breathe. No cameras. No proposals. No past. Just the sound of her future sleeping quietly. And for the first time in years, Hope doesn't feel like she has to fix anything. She just has to feel it. What happens next isn't just about a proposal. It's about who Hope becomes when she stops reacting and starts deciding. Will she return to Liam with a clearer head and heart? Or will she walk a new path entirely, one that doesn't involve repeating the same emotional loops? The ring is still there, but this time the decision won't be made in public. It will be made on her terms. Because for the first time, Hope Logan might finally be choosing herself.